Hello everyone, thank you for joining Ranger 4's webcast, How do Hiscoxs use Atlassian in their DevOps Toolchain? Here to facilitate the discussion this afternoon is Helen Beale, and also joining us is Steve Hawkins, Build and Deployment Automation Specialist at Hiscox. As mentioned earlier, please write any questions you may have in the chat box or use the question function in your GoToWebinar control panel, and they'll be answered at the end. I will now pass it over to Helen.
Hello everyone, we're just having a problem, a slight technical hitch that Steve's been disconnected, so just bear with us while we get him reconnected. Hold on a sec. Right, those of you that have just joined, apologies for that. Steve's just they were just having a little switch reset over at Hiscox, and it just knocks him off the call, but he should be just about back with us any second now.
Hi, Helen.
And then we'll get started. Here he is. Hello, Steve. So thanks for the intro, Priyanka. As Priyanka said, I'm Helen Beale. I'm a DevOpsologist at Range 4, and I'm really delighted to be able to welcome Steve to this webcast this afternoon. So Steve is a build and release engineer at Hiscox. Would you like to say a little bit more about yourself and your role at Hiscox?
I say build and release engineer at Hiscox. So we've been setting up a sort of emergent software team, if you like, a platform team within Hiscox to try and put together a change pipeline, build the processes around the tooling, and onboard product teams to use that change pipeline.
Great, so that's perfect framework or foundation for today's conversation about how you use the Atlassian components in that toolchain. But let's kind of just recap on why Range 4 have done this webcast today. So Range 4 are recently have become Atlassian experts. We've done that because we've recognised in our customer base, with people like Hiscox and many of our other customers, the increasing popularity of the Atlassian toolset. We also ran some surveys for a couple of months earlier on in the year, getting a view from the marketplace as to which tools they liked working with. And again, there's a lot of response that Atlassian was very popular out there. And in this webcast today, what we're going to explore is how Atlassian forms the basis of a tool chain, and why we think that's a particularly good direction to go in if you're going in a DevOps direction. But before we do that, let's rewind right to the start of how Hiscox began their DevOps journey. So I've got a picture of Leonardo da Vinci in the background of this slide. So Steve, talk us through the first project that you had and how the DevOps thinking started to proliferate and evolve at Hiscox.
So we had a quite big program called Da Vinci together, which was to enable faster change to our direct sales sites. So this is selling direct home insurance, for instance, and it involves a policy admin system in the background. Quite a high-profile project for Hiscox. So something where we wanted to really make a difference and show the real benefits of a faster pace of change and using a DevOps mindset. And yeah, this is where we basically went in, first off, investigations. How do we introduce continuous integration? How do we evolve it into something like continuous delivery to get that fast change that we needed in place? I mean, the system at first was taking quite a few different individuals over, say, a course of a weekend to do a single deployment, which wasn't sustainable. So that's where we started looking at these different toolings, different processes to enable more people to do it individually and faster. So okay, here's a slide from Gareth on some of the tools we started with.
There's quite a few, aren't there? I mean, how did you make the choices to use those particular tools? I can see some that do very similar things as well in there. How did that landscape develop?
Well, like I said, we started with this team about 2 years ago. So there were lots of different use cases. We were trying a lot of different things out, and yeah, as you can see, that it became a little bit unwieldy, looking at all those different technologies there and the crossovers between them, trying to integrate them together. And like you say, a few. Sorry, Helen, carry on.
I was just going to say, it's like that discussion that we had earlier, and we've been having with the DevOps Institute as well. It's like there's all these different kind of software descriptors, so kind of groups that we try and put things in, and then some of them sit in multiple groups, and then there's other ones that don't seem to sit in any. So it's quite a confused space, I think, isn't it?
Yes, I think there's a good if you look up the periodic table of DevOps tools, I think there's someone who's tried putting that together, and even that doesn't look quite.
But yeah, that's from Zubia Labs, and do you know what? I nearly put it in this presentation, but I have quite a few issues with it. I think a lot of it's been kind of people have tried to put stuff in there for the sake of having stuff in there that probably shouldn't be in there. But yeah, it's worth a look. Definitely.
So yeah, that's where we started 2 years ago. So I guess what we've been trying to do is get a handle on all these technologies.
So this was also from Gareth's same presentations. This is how everything fitted together. So you had Dev going into this version control, and then some Jenkins stuff, and then Maven as a build engine, artifact repository there. Then you got udeploy talking to Puppet, coming out to the test servers, Selenium, JMeter, and then kind of getting out into through the route to live. Is there anything else you'd like to say about this one? Sorry, I just thought there might be another one that there wasn't there. There we go.
No, I mean that's basically this is where we got our big win a couple of years back. This really enabled more people individually within the team to do a full deployment. It gave consistency, it gave auditing, it gave all the benefits you expect from a continuous integration delivery pipeline, but a lot of disparate technology.
So all of these kind of massive benefits, and this is from one of Jonathan's presentations last year. So Jonathan, one of Steve's colleagues, the enterprise architect. So you see some really massive benefits, huge increase in the volume of deployments that were possible. And I think Gareth has frequently made the point that we could only, even by adding more people, that wouldn't have been possible. The effort savings were enormous. The change cycle reduction was huge, and this idea of one person knowing how to do it to a release of thousands of people. So this idea that it's so easy to do it that loads of people get involved. So really huge win for Hiscox. I think you won an award as well, a Celent Award for continuous delivery. I remember seeing that last year.
Yeah, that's great.
But things move on. So I use this kind of change slide a lot. And I do talk about kind of tool chains 1.0 and 2.0 and 3.0. And I think it's probably fair to say you're on at least 2.0 now, but you wouldn't have got here if you hadn't have been there. So let's drill down into the changes you made. So talk me through this one. So you've replaced Subversion with Bitbucket. Why did you do that, and what are you getting more with Bitbucket?
So Subversion was a hangaround. So we do work with quite a lot of third parties. So there's a little bit of negotiation about what tools can and can't be used. But when we start using continuous integration, working with branches is quite important. And SVN just doesn't. It's a lot heavier around branches than what Git is. So we found everyone's enabled to create branches a lot more easily with Git. The workflows within Git enable continuous integration. At a much easier rate. So we just found that Git was the right move for us.
And there was a lot of you made that decision together, or was it something that kind of just evolved on a day-to-day basis?
It was an evolution. I think there are still a few projects with Subversion lying around, but this is it's quite quick and easy to get over to Git. There's a definite technical training with Git, understanding exactly what the process is of making change there, which is the hardest part of the migration, really.
Okay. And those viewers who are very eagle-eyed and were concentrating on the earlier slides, you would have noticed that both Rally and Jira were on the earlier slides. And I think it's fair to say that Hiscox haven't made a sort of 100% conscious effort to move to Jira, but I know you have a personal preference for Jira, and it is probably more widely used at the moment. Is that fair to say?
That's very fair. Yeah, I mean, we do have Rally here. I've personally, within Hiscox, not had any experience with Rally. So there are one or two projects still using Rally themselves, but every project I've been involved in is using Jira. I think by far, out of all the Atlassian tools, Jira is the biggest seller, and it's a very good reason for it. It's an extremely good tool for issue tracking and service desk management. A lot. I think that's basically where our entire team will interface, whether it's developers, testers, and project managers. It's where all the information really gets gathered.
And I know that you're kind of in the middle or through an agile transformation as well, but I think you're just exploring how to use Jira around things like Kanban and the visualization boards. Is that right?
That's right. Some teams Kanban does fit in. Somewhere like for our team platform services, where we don't generally deliver products, we more deliver processes and pipelines. Kanban works very well. But for most of our product teams, they're using Scrum.
And I'd be interested to explore a bit more about what you're doing around. You just mentioned Service Desk, and there is another Atlassian kind of version or issue of Jira called Jira Service Desk, but I don't think you're using that, but you are using the underlying ticket mechanism to support your Service Desk?
That's the idea, yes. Yeah. So obviously, for products, it makes sense using Jira Service Desk, but for IT services, not well. The choices there are different, I think. Yeah. So we've found a platform which will actually support issuing tickets to Jira for us.
And how do Bitbucket and Jira talk to each other?
So again, that's what I said was really good about Jira, is everyone in the team interfaces through Jira, and the developers or testers, whoever wants to create a branch within Bitbucket, can do that directly from an issue within Jira. So there's a development section in Jira which allows you to just click a create branch button, and as long as your Jira and Bitbucket accounts are linked, it will take you directly to a Bitbucket page where it will create you a branch based on your issue number, and any commits you make to that branch will be directly reflected back on the Jira issue as well. So seamless integration.
It sounds pretty smooth, at risk of sounding like some crazy 80s entertainer, but it does sound quite slick. This one then, Confluence, a collaborative platform. How long have Hiscox been using that? And again, how does it interface and integrate with the other pieces that you've got there?
So our licenses were bought for Jira and Confluence at the same time and have grown at the same rate. We see Confluence as our main document store now, as well as collaborative space area. Whenever we have a new team start up, their profiles are up there. They keep their sort of local documentation together. Also, as well, a few Jira tickets will mostly go to code, but sometimes they're around investigations, lightweight design work. That sort of thing will get linked from a Jira issue directly to a Confluence document.
And with Confluence, do you have any challenges around managing the data in there? My personal experience is that it can feel quite unstructured. You need to kind of housekeep it quite well, I think. Do you experience that?
Yes, definitely. So so they're both broken down into project areas, which you can give different role-based access on. A lot of our project areas are fairly open to all other project areas, and I guess the idea is to try and lock down your documents or word your documents in a certain way so they fit into that particular project area. But the search within Confluence is brilliant. Yes, you might find a lot of stuff is left stagnant, and it's those things that you're more worried about cleaning up than the structure we found. You can nest pages underneath each other so they have some sort of order, but we found that as long as they're named well, the search is the best way to go.
And we talked earlier about, because there wasn't sort of an equivalent of Confluence on the original slides from last March, Gareth's slides that we were looking at earlier that had the list of tools on there, but we talked about it sort of almost replacing SharePoint in your environment. How would you summarise the difference of experience of trying to collaborate with people in a SharePoint environment versus a Confluence environment?
So I've never been anywhere where I found SharePoint's been set up in such a way where it can be easily searched or easily managed. I personally, I've never really got on with SharePoint as a document store, or as a wiki site for teams. Confluence just is easy to use. There's hundreds of macros for every page to put either presentations live in there, or lucid charts, or PDF. Anything can go in there, and it just seems a lot easier to use.
Are you using add-ons for any of those pieces, or add-ons around any of the Atlassian toolset?
So we are actually using the cloud-hosted Jira and Confluence rather than managing and hosting our own servers. We are using one or two plugins. Like I say, Lucidchart is one of the plugins we're using. We're using all the application linking between Atlassian products. But as far as plugins go, I don't think we've actually had to use that many.
It's been pretty self-sufficient, as it were. And this is one that you're not using in the cloud. It's not currently available in the cloud, as recently announced by Atlassian.
Yeah, so it looks...
Karen.
Yeah, sorry. It looks like Atlassian are going a slightly different direction with their cloud-hosted continuous integration server. So they're actually trying to just extend Bitbucket to do quite lightweight continuous integration. But they still offer full support for the server, so private hosted CI tool, which is Bamboo.
And I think they're calling that Bitbucket pipelines, aren't they? The new version.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So yeah, sorry, Henry, carry on.
I was just going to say, you've been on a pretty interesting journey to get to Bamboo. So you can see that we've got Jenkins and Team City here, and it was Jenkins that was shown in the earlier slides, but we've obviously been on this journey with you. Do you want to talk us through kind of what your experiences with Jenkins? I know you looked at the enterprise version, you were very keen on Team City at one point, but you ended up with Bamboo. So do you want to talk us through what happened there?
Yeah, I mean, we started off with Jenkins, and I mean, Jenkins isn't a very pretty tool. It's quite clunky to put together. There's lots of plugins for it and lots of versions and different people's interpretations of how plugins should be used. It is a great tool, and it's free, so it's obviously great. And they have introduced the enterprise version with pipelines, which was starting to look really good, and we did a little trial with it. Team City, again, really a nicely polished off CI integration tool. It works really well. Mostly we use it for .NET projects, but now what we've started to do is, as we've really taken on Jira and Confluence, we've started looking at the Bamboo tool. And the one thing which we didn't get, which I know you can get if you work with the pipelines for Jenkins, and if you put a lot of work in with the Team City side of things, is that you can get not just continuous integration reports, so all your commits of and how well they're being tested from a local point of view, but with Bamboo you can also get continuous delivery reports, so they split build plans and deployment projects out quite well, and you get the idea of that you package up an artifact, you fully test that artifact, and then you can make it part of a release, which then you can turn over to deployment projects within Bamboo and give them purpose, so provision an environment for UAT and deploy that artifact to it. And again, this goes back to that nice linking back right back to Jira. So what we had in Jira was a link to a Bitbucket branch. What Bamboo does is it can understand branching from Bitbucket, clones its master build plan to the branch plan, does all the tests and verifications that we would normally do with continuous integration on that branch commit, and then can send that artifact off to do a sort of sys-test deployment. And as long as all that deployment is successful, what it will do is it will auto-merge it for us back into master. So it's much more branch aware in Bamboo. It's got a full feedback then. So your release, which was created, is then tracked back to that commit on that branch in Bitbucket. And that again is then updated in Jira. So now Jira knows that it was successfully sent to a sys-test environment and it passed its tests. So, or it failed and it can report that back and you can create a bug back in Jira.
And anybody can look in Jira and see what's going on.
Exactly. That's the one thing we never really got when we had the free version of Jenkins or the paid version of Team Cities. We didn't get that. We didn't get that. What environment is my current feature on, which we now get with Bamboo.
I'm actually going to. We've had a question from the audience, so I think it might be quite a good time to ask it because it's kind of extending on from here. So we established a few minutes ago that you're not using Jira Service Desk, the product, but you are using Jira as a service desk in some respects in terms of ticketing and support things. The question is, are you using any of this for ops monitoring or alerting or incident management team and processes? And I guess you've kind of just answered some of that in that you know whether a release is successful or not. What about post-release? Are you doing anything there?
Well, so where we're using this full Atlassian suite is we've started looking into provisioning full environments in Azure. So we started off with App Insights to begin with, and we're currently in the process of creating our monitoring portal, if you like, to get together whether it's status of Azure, whether it's certain limits are being hit around traffic, so we need to scale, or whether it's actual instance inside a JVM using Dynatrace or something like that. All those varying bits of information that you want to monitor whilst you're in production operations, we're still pulling together a portal where we can visualize that and create the alerts. So we're hopeful that we're going to get some sort of nice integration that either automatically create Jira issues and notify someone, but we're not quite there yet. So that's our next stage now, is getting the monitoring sorted, and that's either automatic service desk side of things created or some sort of notification to get the process started.
And some sort of dashboard?
Exactly, yes, yeah.
So we knocked this up together earlier as the sort of new representation of your current toolchain 2.5 or whatever we want to call it. And we can see immediately how much simpler this is than what you had in the earlier slides. And I think you just described this. This is where you are now, and you're currently going to Azure. Is there anything else you'd like to describe on here? We've got a couple of testing bits. You mentioned the integrated tests that were happening to allow a deployment to happen. Yeah,
again, the stuff around Bamboo there is that's based on one particular type of agent. So we have different types of agents depending on the products we're releasing, and they'll have different types of test tools or frameworks for compilation or frameworks for deployment on them. The main thing there is, as you say, you've got the line of the infrastructure as code. That's been the big part of our last project is to more build the idea and the capabilities around infrastructure as code. We've chosen Azure to do it in because that gives us a clean slate. But really, all those tools that are being used there, we're hoping to then bring that back in so we can start using the same tooling and processes to provision in-house as we do in the cloud or any cloud provider.
So we've kind of been chomping at the heels of this next section, which is really kind of the last part about what's next. You'll see that I've had a bit of an epiphany since we spoke earlier on today about this, and we've now started calling this the DevOps leap. So we've been talking about this with customers for quite a while, as the ultimate goal of DevOps is to get to this point of ideation to realization, so being able to track and trace, if you like, a feature through development and delivery, and then to actually be able to measure the impact of that feature when it's in the wild. So we think this is the the ultimate metric. You were just touching on some of this a moment ago. So this is kind of your next stage. So you mentioned Dynatrace on there. I think that will give you monitoring, and you use it fairly extensively for some root cause analysis, but actually kind of taking it to that next level and getting that feedback loop of the customer experience. Is that going to be important to you?
Yes, very much. And also sort of cost modeling as well is becoming more and more important for us to justify what platform certain products can go on.
Okay. And we've got 3 clouds now there as well. What's that all about?
So again, this is the idea that the tooling and the processes we're put in place, they're not for any particular environment. They're there for any environment. So we're hoping there's going to be much reuse of these tools for a lot of the products. So certain cases where we have to have things in-house, we use VMware. For the cases where there's new features available in AWS which aren't in Azure, we can then start to decide to use AWS for certain things. Or there might be a case that if we've got large storage requirements, but they don't need to access them, there could be cheaper costs for cold storage in one than the other. So the idea is that we want to reuse the skill set we've built up in-house now, the tooling and the processes. And obviously we've got cloud management platform down there as a question mark. That's where we've been trying to look at next.
And it gives you much more flexibility, I guess, as well, and therefore minimises your risk as an organisation. Because I know a lot of companies that we work with, when they see the promise of cloud and it makes sense to them, but they're quite fearful of making steps towards it because this technology landscape is moving so fast, as we've seen. Kind of where you were with your toolchain last year is now quite different from where you are now. And any guesses on what it's going to look like in the next year or two is interesting as well. But building this flexibility in at the start then means you're not beholden to anybody later. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it looks like we're. Sorry, Karen.
I was just going to say, the cloud management platform piece. That's another fear people have, I think, of going into the cloud, is that basically it could just trigger chaos with lots of people spinning things up and not spinning things down, and things really getting out of control. Is that something you're trying to minimise the risk around?
Yeah, this is it. I mean, we've tried using Bamboo to sort of handle the life cycle of environments in the cloud for us, so it can not only just spin things up, but at the end of it we can hopefully kill things down with Bamboo as well. That has, I mean, it does seem to work, but it's a little bit clunky, and it obviously doesn't know about whether you should or shouldn't be able to do that. And like I say, when we were talking about costing earlier, I think that's where possibly cloud management platforms coming, because you can give different projects budget for every product we've looked at for cloud management platforms, they're very big products, and they seem like they do everything. So it'll be interesting to see what we end up with cloud management platform.
You want something a bit more lightweight that just enables you to kind of control what's out there and manage the cost in it.
Yes, just to see what's out there would be great, just to visualize it and see how much it's costing.
And then there's another newcomer on this slide, which was Puppet, which we haven't talked much about. So how's Puppet's role changing in this new world?
So in the previous world, or in the current state on-premise, we're using Puppet for post-provision build of machines. So we have a provisioning process at the moment for VMs, and once they are provisioned, we've got Puppet agents on them, and they'll talk to our master, and we do sort of the middleware provisioning. So putting on versions of Java, .NET, whatever it may be. What we're looking at now with Puppet is to do the same thing for IaaS boxes. So our initial focus with cloud providers was to make use of as much PaaS as possible, so the platform as a service. And now we're looking at certain situations where we still have to fall back to infrastructure as a service. And that's where Puppet's coming in, to do exactly the same job it did for us in-house.
Excellent. So we're just coming up to the end of our half hour that we had planned for this. So as a whistle-stop tour for everybody of Hiscox's toolchain journey so far and Atlassian's involvement in it. But we wanted to leave you with a takeaway, which is In summary, what we believe Atlassian brings to the table in the context of forming a DevOps toolchain is really three things. So for me, the first one is really about traceability, so being able to identify and track a feature through its life cycle. And this is very closely linked to the integration, obviously, which enables that to happen. And I think Steve's described quite a lot about how Jira allows you to get into Git branches and how Bamboo tells Jira what it's done and whether it's been successful or not. And then the third one, which is a point I think, Steve, you feel quite passionate about, is you've seen visually today how you've been able to consolidate your tool chain down from lots and lots of bits to actually something that's quite straightforward. Is that right?
Exactly. I mean, that's what we've basically been concentrating on since the beginning of this year, was the consolidation, picking the right tools, and trying to migrate people off of the existing tools.
Great. So we do, I know I already asked somebody this question, but we do have a few minutes for questions. If anybody has anything that they would like to raise, you can either use the question box or the chat box, or raise your hand. Don't seem to be getting any other questions at this point.
No, there are no more questions.
No.
But thank you, Helen and Steve.
Thank you. Yes, and thank you very much, Steve.
Thanks for inviting me. It's great.
And talk soon.
Yeah, for everyone tuned in, there will be a follow-up email coming through with the slides and recording.
Oh, hang on, we've got a question, I think, has just popped up. Have you considered Foreman with Puppet?
So we're using Puppet Enterprise, which comes with the Enterprise console. So yeah, we don't have use for Foreman, and we've got Puppet Enterprise console there.
Okay, hopefully that answered that question satisfactorily for you, Chris. And so we'll say goodbye again, and thank you everybody for your time today.
Cheers.
Thanks, Chris. Cheers, everyone. Thanks, Steve. Bye-bye.
Yeah.